Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel and a very special Sunday today. Because Sunday it is sparring day, so that means I'm going to go get my face smashed in. But before that, I wanted to talk about some Magic and Net Money, of which we have several new charts to be speaking about today. A big focus on the dominance, a big focus on the long term, as is usual for Sunday, as we like to coin it, Macro Sunday. And then there will be nothing on the short term today, as I want to make this one a little bit more on the digestible side. Hopefully that is my goal for today. Anyways, other than that, I should once again let you know that we still have the promotion going on where you can get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days, and there is an affiliate link to the Apex Decentralized Exchange in the description below, which will award you 5% off of your trading fees, of which you may or may not be interested in, because it's a decentralized exchange and most exchanges are being sued by the SEC right now. All right, sweet. So let's just jump right into it and start off right in over here with a completely new chart, a chart that I haven't spoken about in, it might be like 6 months to a year now, which is the Tether Dominance chart. And long term, you can see that it's been trending nice and sideways and up. Yes, indeed. But why is that even relevant? Well, what I really want to be coming at and focusing on right here is a comparison between this chart and Bitcoin. And so what I'll do is I'll leave this one in the background here. Again, that's Tether Dominance. And then we'll look at Bitcoin's chart in the orange over here. And so the underlying ideology here would be that if Tether Dominance is essentially going up, then we would expect Bitcoin to be going down, or just most cryptocurrencies going down, let's say. I do acknowledge that this current regime is probably different, seeing as it really does feel like we're going to get a bit of an altcoin reckoning for like a long time, with the SEC kind of coming at these projects, and making it very, very clear that they're just not going to be, I guess, allowed or okay, at least in the US. But in this case, you can see very, very clearly that on major breakouts for the Tether Dominance, well, what happened to Bitcoin? It came down. In fact, if I go ahead and throw on my drawing tools right here, I've marked off all of the big ones with these green vertical bars. You can see very, very clearly that those areas, again, specifically on the Tether Dominance chart, correlate incredibly well with these major downs on Bitcoin. In fact, I'll just get rid of the Tether Dominance chart right there, and just looking at these major breakouts on Tether Dominance, you can see these were all, significant, very, very significant moves to the downside. Several of them actually, like some pretty scary ones, actually like 40% in some cases. But I'm not saying that this one's going to necessarily be 40%, because it's not necessarily the same thing that we're looking at right here. Actually, if we go back and put on the Tether Dominance chart, yes, it is trending to the upside, but we're not at like a major breakout area just yet. Major breakout would be actually above about like 9.5% almost, a little bit less than that. You can see that long term, it's kind of wedging itself into that region, putting in yet another potential ascending triangle right here, similar to the one that we did see going all the way from September 2020 to May of 2022, which was another reason why we had a major downside bias coming from, I think Bitcoin was like around 45,000 bucks, coming down to like 30,000 and even below 30,000 bucks, obviously. But it appears to be doing something very, very similar here as well. So of course these do have, obviously a higher probability to break out to the upside rather than the downside, because it's just, it's just a simple trend, right? I mean, it's just higher lows with the same highs. Well, that would be essentially consolidation, a bullishly imposed consolidation, and breakout again, around about 9.5%. At that point, that would be very, very concerning. So in this case, it does provide a bit of a, bias that in the, in the more near term, we probably do see more downside pressure on this market. Within the context of that, I should also be aware that yes, there is indeed weekly hidden bullish divergence, phantom drop right here, but is relevant nonetheless. That will be confirmed on today's closure, actually. So assuming that the weekly doesn't, absolutely catastrophically fail back down below, let's say 8%, yeah, that one very likely does continue. And the weekly jewel signal over here as well is still, I would say, going pretty strong, at least in the near term. I do think that we'll test somewhere around like 9%, let's say, and then come back to it after that. Now, again, I do, my voice is fucking cracking. No, I do have a bit of reservations that this necessarily spells doom for Bitcoin or the other, like, I guess safe cryptos now is how we're going to bifurcate this market. It's like the ones that are okay by the SEC and the ones that are not. We could theoretically see Tether Dominance zoom to the upside, and mostly altcoins get wrecked, and maybe Bitcoin comes down a bit but doesn't have any sort of like major catastrophic failure. In fact, as we'll be going over a little bit later, I still do not have any reason to believe that Bitcoin does not already have the macro low in, for several reasons that we've gone over many times within these videos. But I'll go over some of the bigger ones later on in this video, maybe near the end. Anyways, moving on from there, as we did just get that, I did want to go over regular Bitcoin dominance. Again, we briefly discussed it yesterday, but this is where I do think that, we really are going to see a lot of altcoins kind of fall by the wayside, if you will. Is that like a nice way of putting it? A euphemism way of putting it? Well, we are witnessing as of right now the resolution of a more than 2-year long consolidation beginning in April of 2021, looking to be resolved here in about June of 2023. So in this case, this is very, 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 very significant, because most altcoins are going to be getting absolute fucking boo caked on. And in this case, long term, I've been saying anywhere between about 58% to like 62%. I have no reason to change that. It's just been taking its time, obviously. There will very likely be stops along the way, of course. You got one here at about 54%, let's say, and these are relevant for the higher term timeframes. And then, after that, looking somewhere around here, also in alignment with the measured move coming off of a W bottom, which again will be confirmed with the weekly closure today. Let's say above, like very obviously above about 49.5%. I'd even say here or higher is good enough at 49%, basically. That would look pretty damn good for that one to continue upwards and onwards. And we do see that the altcoins that the SEC are coming after, they are getting more wrecked than the other ones, which is like obvious. It's intuitive, but that is why I do say that we could see this go up. We could see Tether dominance go up, but maybe Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, maybe some of the other more strong ones, they probably come down, but they likely set in higher lows. Is kind of is kind of what I'm looking at right here. Anyways, we also can witness from the quarterly chart, it does appear to be a quarterly breakout. And like I said, long term, long term, like I'd say within the next 6 months to a year, very likely we see somewhere around the upper 50s. I would say like 58%. If things get really crazy, maybe in like the next year and a half, I would be looking in the low 60s actually. And yes, I do think that it will probably get there. We probably even see, some regular bullish evidence on the quarterly chart right here. Don't know how much I trust that one, but should be good enough at least in the next, I would say, in the next maybe 12 months at most to see this one back up above or at least around 58%. And personally speaking, I do think that it will move higher than there, but that'd be like the next, obvious area. All right, sweet. So we spoke about that. Let's get into Bitcoin now, and we'll start off over here on the weekly. I do just want to present a couple of simple charts. Looking at the weekly Gaussian channel yet again, we can see that it is providing a bit of a base. Currently coming in around about 24,800, which was an area that we've been speaking about on this channel for quite some time. Do I think that we're going to officially test that? Or does this kind of already count over here? It does look like we probably will officially test, not we, but Bitcoin will officially test it, somewhere on this current move. The question is, does Bitcoin break below it or not? At that point, that's where, could really be looking at much more severe downside. Perhaps I still kind of go back to my worst case scenario of like 21,000-ish, give or take a few bucks from that number, would kind of be the area of interest that I'd be looking for, with a likely stop along the way at about 23.5-ish or somewhere around there. Anyways, it doesn't even really matter at that point. I don't know. No, of course. But on top of that, we do see that the weekly is putting a drive of phantom regular bearish divergence right here. Also a bit of a head and shoulders on the weekly RSI, and also, rejection from the bullish control zone. Again, long term, I don't think that these things are like going to lead to new lows, but, some potentially significant downside from here, definitely possible. Again, assuming that this one gets confirmed. Is there some hopium, however, for Bitcoin boulas here? Well, of course, the weekly hasn't closed just yet, and the most obvious source of hopium would be if Bitcoin got back above 26,300. Why 26,300? Well, there's multiple reasons. One of the big ones and one of the easy ones would just be looking at that weekly 200 simple and green 55 exponential moving average. Bitcoin can reclaim those by end of day here, which would also fulfill the weekly closure. Let me just make sure I'm recording. I am recorded, so that's good. It's good, really good thing to be making sure, like halfway through the fucking video, huh? But yeah, in this case right here, you know, if Bitcoin really starts to close below these regions, that to me is going to suggest that this silver cross still wants to play out to the downside a little bit. So yeah, you know, that would be a pretty damn good indication that this next week or two, we do see continuation to the downside. At least if that's going to happen, that's what we would be expecting, you know, over the next 14-day period, basically kind of taking us into like the end of June. So in this case, yeah, big closure later tonight. You know, would there still be hopium after that? I mean, it depends how you define hopium, right? But I suppose if you're looking at the Gaussian channel, yeah, you still got 24,800 to kind of provide as an impetus of dare I say support. Similar to what you've seen in the past as well. You know, anytime that Bitcoin has reclaimed that mean band, it typically has, not typically, but it's always gotten a free ride to the top side of the Gaussian channel and actually broken out as well before retracing a bit. So, you know, as long as it holds that mean band, this is a pretty good example right here, but the best one is probably over here. As long as it holds the mean band, you know, there is still hopium, I suppose. But you know, again, it's starting to wane, and I would at least look at a test towards like the official mean bounds. That does mean new lows this week if that were to be fulfilled. So fair enough. Anyways, yeah, so we've spoken about that. We've spoken about that, about that. Also of relevance here is we can see that weekly volatility represented by the HPDRV is what we're going to call it. I think Caretaker is pretty close to releasing this one as well. I've been getting a lot of questions about it. But you know, it'll be ready when it's ready, man. You just got to give him time. You got to give him time. Trust in the Caretaker. You know, you just have to put trust in him. He's the man. He's never let us down. Not even fucking once. Not even close to being once. Anyways, in this case right here, yeah, you know, we are seeing volatility expand from, you know, basically the lowest level that we've seen since October of 2020. Now, of course, that one was a measure. That one was a resolution to the upside, as was the one prior to that too, for significant moves. But volatility is direction neutral, and you know, significant move can be to the upside or the downside. And right now, you know, kind of teetering on the edge for the downside. To be fair, though, now that I kind of go over it for the weekly, specifically, all of the last 6 of these particular reads, 7, were resolved to the upside. In fact, maybe all of them have been. No, this one was not. All right, so one of them was not. Interesting. Perhaps I just should do a better study on that for another video. That is kind of strange, though. You would typically look at low volatility around your highs rather than your lows. But I suppose it's worth me studying. Anyways, also, while we're here, I should denote that one of the other pieces of hopium, which was the falling pizza, whatever the fuck you want to call it, on the daily over here, is still intact. It's still intact as of right now. Again, I don't really care too much for these formations, but you can see that the bottom boundary is about 25,200. So very, very close to that mean band, meaning that if Bitcoin does start to, you know, close below that region, very likely we're going to see a significant continuation of the downside. Until then, you know, a few pieces of hopium. You got the falling pizza or the falling wedge. You got you still got the weekly Gaussian channel for now, and maybe if Bitcoin were to reclaim about 26,300 by end of day, that would look really, really good for the Bulas. Until then, yeah. So fair enough. But of course, you know, the big focus and one of the things that I really wanted to get into deeply yesterday, which I believe, you know, was pretty much the primary focus of the video, was the 2-day time frame setup over here, which is going to be providing a downside bias, just to put it bluntly. 2-day time frame volatility getting down towards extreme lows and then expanding from those extreme lows has led to an average move of about 20, like mid 20% over the course of about 19 days, and the direction of the stochastic oscillator has been correcting in the direction of that volatility expansion about 81.5% of the time. That's if we include both shorts and longs, you know, based off the stochastic oscillator. In this case, you know, the downside momentum actually does have a little bit of a higher hit rate than that. Again, not 100% hit rate, obviously, but in this case, we can see that this one is closing tonight. What's the current momentum pivot? 26,350 actually. That is, again, to say that if Bitcoin were to close above that region, that would be a damn good indication that this is going to be a bear trap, and we will actually see this turn up. We'll see volatility expand, and we can start to talk about, 30,000, well more than $30,000, obviously, but probably into like 34, $35,000 ultimately. Until then, downside is going to be a little bit more likely. Confirmation on this one is going to be in 18 hours, 22 minutes, and 56 seconds, basically the end of the day closure alongside the weekly, and alongside the daily, of course, as well. So after that, if that gets ticked off, I mean, maybe you can, I'm trying to find more sources of hopium here. But maybe you can give it like a 1 period grace period, meaning that, the next closure, if that one reclaimed, then, perhaps you'd see it turn around. But I would say that would be like not wise, not historically wise, at least. Anyways. Okay, cool. So we've gone through that. Now I do want to go over the long term here now in a more fundamentally based way, as to why I think wherever Bitcoin might pull back down to, is probably going to be a higher low and probably going to be a major opportunity. First and foremost, actually, I should probably go over presumed areas based off of these stats over here. Now, there is a standard deviation within these results of about 9%. So, on the lower end, we're probably looking like somewhere in the teens, which would be like low 24, upper 30, low 24, upper 23. If it goes for the average at around like the mid 20s, that would put Bitcoin at about $21,000 or so, which again is in alignment around the bottom side of that weekly Gaussian channel there. So those would be the areas of interest, again, assuming that does get confirmed. So the other thing that I wanted to get into, like I was just kind of alluding to, was, long term, fundamentally, we do see that the MVRV has been pretty damn consistent in calling all of the macro lows for Bitcoin. And while, pullbacks can be had after the macro lows are in on the higher term timeframes, those are traditionally, major opportunities. This chart down here is the MVRV. Again, this is the market cap. This is like the realized cap versus the market cap. And well, what are we looking at? Well, anytime that it goes into the green zone, that is, usually about the low. And then when it starts to travel outside of the green zone, that's where the low is in. And essentially, pullbacks, like I alluded to, are to be bought. So you can see it all throughout these cycles here. Several attempts in this one over here. Yeah, yet again, until the Rona dump, yet again, same thing. And what do you know? In the 2022, 2023 saga, we saw it work its way out of the green zone officially in February, which was another one of our major reasons why we were looking for this one to continue upwards and onwards. And it's still living above there. So ultimately, can it pull back? Yeah, absolutely. Is it likely to be an opportunity? However, I would say yes as well, at least historically speaking. And then, of course, the other big one for me is just looking at the monthly volatility. Whoops, wrong chart. Let's actually go to this one over here. I want to be using that V, baby. I want to be using that V. But looking at monthly volatility, we can see very, very clearly that all of the extreme reads that we've seen right here have correlated directly to macro cycle lows. And we even saw one of the highest reads ever here. In fact, it would be the third highest, I suppose. Even greater than what we saw in 2018, thus, being an even greater marker, I would argue, of the low being in, as you would expect, extreme volatility, as well, there's extreme fear and extreme panic, and price comes down. So looking at it, from this particular angle, yeah, we do see, I don't think I have it on this chart. Yeah, I don't have it on this chart, but you can see very, very obviously here that all of those big spikes were the macro low, basically. And what do you know? We saw a big spike over here, literally on the fucking low in November of 2022, and it's been trending down ever since. And once we start to see that volatility start to trend down, like you see here, again, it's kind of the same thing as the MVRV. Pullbacks, while they can be, nasty, even to the tune of like 30, in some cases 40%, they do get bought back on up, and, the bull market essentially emerges from there slowly and then very, very quickly into rising volatility, which the rising volatility essentially marks that, hey, there's your top, and then the opposite yet again, rising volatility, or Jesus Christ, man. Lowering volatility until the top, and then rising volatility as the top goes into the bottom, with a full focus on, of course, the extremes here. Basically, anything above 90 percentile is where you're probably pretty fucking close to the bottom. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this one. Yes, there are other things that that would be on that same topic, but I think we've gone over them so many other times within these long-term analysis videos, so I won't bore you with the details. Those were the two big ones for me: the MVRV and then the monthly volatility. Could even throw in the accumulation distribution indicator as well, but you already know. All right, sweet. That's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular one. As always, wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Monday.